there was International Women's Day. And this was especially very important in India because recently there has been several cases of forced rape and abuse to young girls. And there were big demonstrations in Delhi against the government for not doing something about it. And it was world news. So I think it was a few days before I was leaving. The place we have our Bhaktivedanta hospital, the land was donated by a trust owned by an educational institution, Dalmia Foundation. And they have schools all around where we have our hospital. And in one of their auditoriums, they had a ceremony, a gathering for International Women's Day. And many of the people came who were very top people of society. There were politicians, there were industrialists, there was very big business people. They were in the auditorium. And the keynote speaker was a simple village lady from Maharashtra, the state of Mumbai. Her name, Sindhutai Samkal. It's a very depressing story, but it's a very inspiring story. She explained how she was born in severe poverty in a village not too far from Pune in Maharashtra. And when she was a little girl, she wanted so bad to go to school and learn to get out of this poverty, because everyone in her family was illiterate. But her parents told her that she had to herd the buffaloes during the morning school time. So she had her stick. She's a little girl, 5 years old. Have you ever seen water buffaloes? They're really big. And this little 5-year-old girl with a little stick is herding all these gigantic water buffaloes and taking them from little place to place. It's really dry. They're just finding some shrubs to eat. And water buffaloes love to go on water. So she would bring them after feeding them, in different shrubs and different fields. She would bring them to this pond of water. And they would go in and go underwater up to their heads. They liked to stay there for a long time. While the buffaloes were in the water, she would run to school. And almost every day she was late, and the teacher would beat her for being late. And then after enthusiastically learning everything she could learn, after the class, she would leave and run to try to find the buffaloes. And oftentimes the buffaloes by that time already left the water and were eating shrubs in a neighbor's land. And when she would come to get them, the neighbor would beat her. But she said, these were the happiest days of my childhood. When she was 9 years old, going on 10, she was told she had to marry a 35-year-old man. She lived with him in another village. By the time she was 19 years old, she had 3 sons, and she was pregnant with another child. Do you like the story so far? You're not supposed to like it, actually. She saw that there was like a kind of mafia. And they would have women work, gathering wood, gathering cow dung, and they would take it all and sell it and give none of the money to the village women. And they were all scared to do anything about it. But she went and told one government person, policeman. And the government person made this mafia person pay the women. He was angry as fire. This man went to her husband and told him, the child in the womb of your wife is not yours, it's mine. I've been having a secret affair with her for years. She loves me, and it's my child. And I will not tolerate you living with her. Either you kill her, or I will destroy everything you have. He was mad. So the husband felt so betrayed, and so angry, and so fearful, that he kicked her in the womb repeatedly till she would die. He kicked until she lay there unconscious. Then he dragged her to a cowshed, because then he could just say that, she was pregnant, she fell down there, and the cows just stepped on her, or the bulls gored her, and that's why she's dead. He just threw her with the cows. There was one mother cow. This mother cow stood over her, because she was unconscious, and protected her from every possible danger. Other cows could have there was a crowded cowshed with so many cows in it. And, they would have just stepped on her. But this cow was standing over and pushing all the other cows away to not hurt her. And then she came back to consciousness. And her in-laws came to make sure she was dead. But the cow would not let them approach her. Just chased them away. This cow fearlessly stayed over her. And she had her baby that night under the cow. She said in this talk, see, it was recorded and transcribed, and I'm telling you exactly what she said. She took a rock that was laying on the ground, and with 16 cuts of that rock, she severed the umbilical cord between her and her baby. And she was so weak and so bruised. For practically a day, she couldn't move. And the cow stood over her and her little bitty infant. And she made a promise to that cow. As you protected me when I am helpless, I will protect those who are helpless. But now here she is an infant child. She went back to her own biological home, and they rejected her. They said, according to our village traditions, once you're married, you cannot come back to our home. You're out. So she was totally homeless, with nothing and no one. And a 19-year-old girl, quite pretty, she knew that in this state, she was going to be exploited and raped by men. Where's she going to go? She went to a crematorium. And at night, she slept where the burning bodies were. And she acted crazy, so that if anybody came to the crematorium, they thought she was ghostly haunted. She said in those beginning days, she couldn't do much because she had this child. There was a tradition that sometimes in Maharashtra, they put like a circle of wheat flour around the funeral pyre, where there's the wood, and then they put the body on it, then they set it on fire. She would gather that wheat flour, put a little water in it, make it into patties. Do you all know what a chapati is? It's a flat Indian bread. She would cook her chapatis on the corpse of burning bodies. That was her stove. That's how she lived. And after some time, when she got strength, she would go to the railway station to beg, and then come back to sleep at the crematorium with her baby. Her life was so hopeless. It was so depressing that she decided she should commit suicide. She contemplated it for several days, and one night she decided, I'm going to do it. And she would kill her child with her because she didn't want her child to inherit a life like her. So she went to the railway tracks. The train was coming, and she was about to put her body under the train. But she heard someone screaming in pain. And it affected her so much. She left the railway track and went to the platform and found this really old man who was dying, who was starving for water and food. So she got him some water, and she went and begged and got him some food. And he was so grateful. She had an awakening at that moment. She said that she felt God came to her at that moment to tell her that there's something more valuable for you to do in life than commit suicide. There are other people in need that you can help. So she decided to live. And she took a little baby. She went to some field. She was just sitting there wondering, what am I going to do? She was feeling in her heart, I'm so cut to pieces. I'm so abused and exploited and beaten down. How can I help anybody? She said she was sitting under a tree, and there was a branch of the tree that a woodsman cut with an axe. It was cut in many places. And because of the jagged cuts of this axe, somehow the person didn't finish the job, and the branch was just hanging from a very small piece of substance. It was just hanging there. And she noticed that axed hanging branch was giving her and her baby shade. And at this time, she turned to Krishna, and she felt Krishna is telling me that even if we are so much damaged, we can heal ourselves by doing good for others. And then she remembered that cow and renewed her vow. And from that day, in India, especially at railway stations, there's orphan children. Children who have no parents. And they usually there's no possibility of their getting an education. They usually either get trapped and put to child labor under cruel circumstances, or they go out and beg. And if you try to beg, usually all the areas are divided up by mafias. So she started taking these children and being their mother. And she learned how to sing. She had a really good voice. So she would go to the railway platforms and she would sing and ask for bakshish, donations, and people would give her donations. And then she would get some food and she would cook for all her children, and they were just living under trees in the crematoriums, wherever they were. And this went on for some years. And soon she had a lot of orphans. And she became known as the mother of the orphans. Seeing her sincerity and seeing how she was giving such shelter and transformation to these helpless kids' lives, some people came forward and actually built her an orphanage. And then another one. And over the decades, she said that she had, and she loves all these children as her own mother, as their mother. She said, I have over 1,500 children. I think she has 235 sons-in-laws, 35 daughter-in-laws, and over 1,000 grandchildren. And she's gotten, I believe it's 270 awards for her work. One of the awards was given by the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Another award was given to her by the Prime Minister of India, not long ago. When the Prime Minister gave her an award, that was big news. Her husband, now he's 80 years old. He's homeless and totally desperate. He came to her in total desperation. And she looked at him. She said, that day that you tortured me, you intended to kill me, and you just left me in a cowshed. She said, that day I had to live in rags while you were wearing fine clothes. But today you are in rags and I am in fine clothes. She said, I was starving with nothing and no one. Now I'm eating nicely and you're starving with nothing and no one. And he cried. And he asked forgiveness. She said to the audience, she's helped thousands of people in total desperation. But she said the most fulfilling and meaningful thing she had ever done in her own life is she forgave her ex-husband. And she said, I'm no one's wife anymore. I'm only a mother. She's 63 years old now. This happened a few years ago. She said, you could come and stay in my orphanage, and I'll take care of you as your mother. And he came. And to all the children in the orphanage and all the guests that would come, she would introduce them. She would say, this is my oldest son. She's 62, now he's about 85 or something. So this is my oldest son, and he's a very naughty boy. But he needs more love than anybody else. So give him your love, give him your care, give him your kindness. And she tells all the other children that if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here for you. She said, if he didn't treat me the way he did, I would have just been a housewife. God knows, I may have had like 10 children. But because of what he did, now I have thousands of children and thousands of grandchildren. And I've made a total difference. Every one of the children who come to her gets a total education, love and care and protection. In fact, her 3 sons, after she started an orphanage, they left the father to come live with her. And her 3 sons have PhDs. One of them did his PhD thesis on his mother's life. And the daughter that was born under the cow, that was living in the crematorium with the mother, that daughter is a medical doctor. And she runs one of her mother's orphanages. And she tells all her children, if this man didn't do that to me, she said, I've been invited to 14 different countries. What a life I have. And what was her message? That no one should ever be without hope. However dark and difficult our life is, she was saying, if we look for a positive opportunity and turn to God, that will be there. Whatever happens, she said, my life is this message to the world. Never be depressed. Never give up. With God's grace, there's always something wonderful that we can do. In giving, we receive. There's a saying, we make a living by getting things. We make a life by giving.